Good day, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. I'm very sorry I couldn't join you in virtual person, but I ended up being kind of double booked today, and I'm at the moment working on some spray testing for our new research project. So I'll try to be brief with my comments, and as everyone always knows, us Aberharts are very short, sweet, and succinct with our descriptions. And I also am kind of excited about sharing this little video with everyone because Brother Dan won't be able to interrupt me now during my talk and go off on any wild tangents. So this will be good. Anyway, so when it comes to potash and combining it with sulfur, I mean, yeah, I think it's a pretty simple, great idea. As far as potash goes in general, as an agronomist and a grower, we were always coached by Elston and all the other amazing gurus in the AgriTrend network about the importance of potash. And yeah, there's many believe that we don't need potash because their soil tests are high, but typically we have high magnesium and other things in the soil that tie that up. And availability is pretty poor. And as you'll hear about all the other tissue tests, we've seen the same thing in our business and across our clients. 14 years of fertility planning and tissue test planning. It was quite a few years ago. We looked at over 1,000 tissue tests that we had taken within our grower network. And out of all of those tissue tests, one of them was low in nitrogen. Only one was low in nitrogen, and that was actually a pea crop that didn't have proper nodulation. And we had about 75 to 80% of them were low in potash. And so it was the same kind of thing where we realized, hey, everyone's managing nitrogen well, and the crops have more nitrogen than they need or enough nitrogen. We're not managing potash very well. And we have seen over the years with more aggressive potash applications, better standability, less disease pressure, less issues with fusarium, overall more consistency in yield, and just better crops overall. And we've seen where we've taken on land that's in the same block or very same area, and we've treated it exactly the same, but it didn't have good potash levels or any history of potash applications. One year we had that field with low potash or no potash applications came back as a 3 because of fusarium, and it was sprayed at the right timing. Same as field right beside it that had K managed very well for probably 10 years, came back as a number 1 and very low fusarium. So we've seen many examples like that over the years of the quality and the value of having consistent K supply to your crop. So then it comes down to, well, spreading it on the ground. And there's lots of debate about that too. And the old thoughts and theories is that, it's best or most efficient to band it in the soil. And for the most part, that is true in many cases. But we also are looking at what makes sense in a larger system. And K is one of those things that it isn't going to get lost if you spread it on top. It's not very mobile, but it is more mobile than phosphate. And it's also one of those things that's just not the nicest thing to deal with in your tank. And it's also a higher salt load. So concentrated in a band with all your other nutrients is a bit of an issue too. So we've already started spreading potash on our farm at various different times. A few years ago, we got some really cheap potash supply, and we spread 100 pounds of actual potash per acre across the whole farm. And we've seen some really good results with that. And also in the last 2 years now in our spreading program, we're putting half of our nitrogen on up front and then the other half in season. And now we've started to put the potash in season with our nitrogen as well with our top dress. So that allows us to have less product in the tank. It allows us to buy, at a different time and get better leverage out of that spreading application. So I think as we move forward, we will look at potentially using Super KS as part of our potassium supply. It may not be all of it, but it'll definitely be a good portion of it. We may still put some down at seeding, but limit that. And of course, in a longer term system, we're not as worried about the efficiency as 1 year. One of the things that we've also been looking at that I think is very interesting, and we learned this from another senior coach at the time in AgriTrend, from Tim Eyrich, that in very high yielding corn crops, or they were just hitting a wall on potassium supply. And no matter in the States and most areas of corn production, they spread everything. They spread phosphate and potash and nitrogen, and they just put liquid starter in their drill for corn and soybeans, right? But no matter how much potassium they spread in the fall or the spring prior to these corn crops, they still would end up crashing at those peak times of demand, even though plants can take up luxury consumption of K, which I'm sure will be talked about on this call. So then what they started doing as kind of a last resort is they just went and spread K in season, and they actually started to get some yield responses. And the thought or the idea there was that when they spread this potash in season and they get those rain events, you get surface root activity, and that K supply goes directly into the plant, versus when it gets spread in the fall or earlier in the spring, some of that potassium is getting tied up in the soil before the crop can access it. So, that's kind of an interesting thing, and something we maybe need to look at a bit more. But anyways, I don't want to take up too much time. So that's my quick little spiel. Sorry I couldn't be there with you guys, but at the end of the day, if it makes sense logistically and you can combine applications and save some money and get that crop in sooner. We see every year our first wheat fields are anywhere from 5 to 10 bushels better than the last one seeded. And we know from research, cereal crops are generally a bushel a day every day later that you seed it, whether that's, wheat, barley, peas, all those kind of crops. Canola, maybe not so much, but one of the biggest things you can do for your yields agronomically is get those cereal crops and those crops that you can seed in as early as you can. So that's also something that can really drive your agronomic performance. So with that, I'll let you guys get back to the debate and enjoy the rest of the show.